Sinise's book, Grateful American. This book came out in 2018, and as of yet, I've not really done a book review so far on the channel, and so I figured I would try that out and see how that goes. Now, a couple things I wanted to talk about that's specific to this review are some of my criterion. I have clarity, insight, style, and genre. These are pretty self-explanatory. The only thing I would like to explain in these is like the genre rank is what I'm talking about, is how well it fits in regard to the genre in comparison to other things that I've read. And in this example, like autobiographies, I've not read a whole lot, so I can't really say too much about it, and it'll probably rank pretty well, and you'll find that out at the end of the video. And then lastly, there are two other things. So the X factor is kind of a yes or no. It's like how well I relate to the book and how well it clicked with me. And then also there's a bonus, which is more of just for the audience, for you listening, is like the reread value. So like would I recommend reading it again? There are certain things like say Wuthering Heights that I would definitely want to read again. And I think each time you read it, you bring a little bit more to the table and you can understand a little bit more from it because it's a very deep narrative with a lot of things going on. And certain things just don't translate like that. With biographies in particular, the reread value is probably not huge unless you were half blind when you read it. So yeah, I'm going to continue from there. And also, okay, the first 4 criterion, there's 3 different things, and you could count those as stars, but it's pretty much lacking, sufficient, excellent. And the excellent category is like, if I really thought it was outstanding in a certain way, and the lacking is like, and then the sufficient is like, it's, you know, it's in between. It's good, it's a solid work, but it's not surpassing in superior style or clarity or insight. So, all right. From there on out, I probably won't explore too much of my criterion, and I'll just try and adhere to the book itself and talk about that. So I thought this book, it really kind of stands out for several things. I think its attention to detail in terms of talking about veterans affairs and helping those that are injured in combat, giving back to communities that Gary Sinise had not really been a part of. He's not been in the military, but he played a lot of military roles in his acting career. And that being said, he devoted his life, it seems like throughout the book, he talks about where he not only created the Gary Sinise Foundation, which helps veterans by building homes for severely injured veterans. We're talking quadruple amputees. We're talking about people's families that have been completely destroyed because of these veterans receive such grievous injuries. One of the things I found really empowering and unique to his message is that Gary Sinise actually advocates doing simple gestures for veterans. He doesn't recommend that you go out and you donate all of your net worth or that you steal from people to try and help veterans. He advocates going to an event and just talking to some veterans, because these are people that have served the country and have extreme worth to the nation and aren't necessarily treated as such. And so he's encouraging the reader to do this sort of thing. And I think if you're watching this, you haven't read this, this is a major theme, and there's something about this in the latter parts of the book. Yeah, on page 242 of Grateful American, there's something really interesting, and he says, I found that the more I served, the more I knew that this calling was just and true and right, that the healing power was giving me new strength to continue to carry on. Eventually, everything came together, pushing me to create an initiative of my own that would eclipse everything else that I'd ever done. I think, the style that he goes with is like, he's embracing his humility, but he's also embracing how important this community is to him personally, because he's a grateful American. And so in that sense, it's a pretty well unified work, because all of his experiences, he's a normal human being sort of in a lot of ways, because his issues and problems just like everybody else. But he has been protected by veterans who are willing to do things, sacrifice more than most people on the face of the earth are willing to do. And I think that's a recognition of a very special subset of humans on Earth. And that's something that I really resonate with. And that'll reflect to my X Factor, evaluation of the book. But I think, the style is not overpowering. It's not too much, but it's also not, I don't know. I mean, it's ghostwritten at a certain point. I don't think Gary Sinise, was looking to write a century-defining novel here, but I do think it's really interesting. His extremely sincere-seeming belief that, because on 259 here, he has, he writes in his, my sincere hope, and I believe that if I fell off the earth tomorrow, something important would be left behind that I would continue to help people. I think that's a motivation for the book here, and I think that he does something good in this book, and it's like he draws attention to the things that really matter, like Veterans Affairs and respecting people that have served the country, that have sacrificed more than the average person, and trying to give back to these people. And these people haven't necessarily touched him in any specific way, but he knows that they've sacrificed, and he takes it upon himself to try and help these people. And that's really what defining a goal and a cause is, and that's what makes me think that this book and Gary Sinise as a person is successful, is because he's identified a need and a cause, and he's gone with it, and he's satisfied this need and this cause with sincere effort and definiteness of opinion. He has a lot of resolve, and he goes through and he does this sort of thing, and I think a lot of times this is something that in my life I could definitely use more of, and that he draws attention to, is that, like, if you were taken off the earth tomorrow, something that I think about is, like, you know, what is the most significant thing I've done? I think through this channel I've helped out and I've educated a little bit, but I can do more. And I can also donate more, and I can encourage other people to donate more. And this is something Gary Sinise does. I think what's interesting, too, is that he's a bass player in a band and that he's not a professional musician. He's doing everything he can. If he had more talents, I think he'd be using them for the veteran cause. He'd be doing what he can. I think what's interesting is that he's doing everything that he's potentially able to, and he's getting all sorts of other community people interested in a way that only he can. There's only one Lieutenant Dan, and he's doing what he can. And literally with the Lieutenant Dan band, that's kind of the whole mission, it seems like. And a lot of his time is dedicated to making people smile. And he's the butt of a joke sometimes, it seems like, throughout the book. But it's about putting your pride aside and honoring those that deserve to be honored, and sometimes that involves a great deal of humility. Something else that I found really interesting is how Gary Sinise talks about his wife and alcoholism. And some of the naivete is something that I relate with. I mean, if you're listening now, chances are you know an alcoholic, whether you know it or not. And the thing is that what he talks about in reference to his wife and her alcoholism and the struggles that he had to make a stand sort of against his wife and declare it's the kids and me or it's alcohol. And that's a lot of things that I'm sure a lot of people watching or listening can relate to. These sorts of things, they happen, and the way he expresses them is in an interesting sort of relatable way, and it's something interesting in the sense that he draws attention to this, he draws awareness to it, but he's not showboating, and he's not trying to say, oh, I'm better than anybody else. And so that's something that I relate to, because he has a good way of drawing attention to something that's very important, but not beating a dead elephant. He doesn't draw on it too much. He has the right amount of emphasis on that thought, and I think that's it's somewhat of a rare quality in a book, and I really appreciate it. There's a quote that's sort of about that. He says, funny how the strongest emotions can be buried deep within the soul. They rise to the surface in times of pressure or intensity, in those infrequent moments of opportunity when we can draw closer to each other in service and dedication, when we understand anew the shortness of life. I think this quote's really interesting because he's talking about sort of a lot of the missions that he's touched along the way. I mean, I think when he helps veterans, this is what the quote is talking about. And when he's overcoming alcoholism with his wife, he's not physically doing that himself, but when he's trying to, by proxy, and fighting for his family like that, or when he's urging other people to fight for their larger community and internationally to support veterans, I think that's what he's doing. He reaches out to a celebrity chef, Robert Irvine. They're a tweet in the book, and it's like this guy is a former veteran as well, and he's getting people that are on board and off board to help people that need help. And I think at the end of the day, what else is it to be human, to be a good human, to do the right thing, than to do just that? And I think what's interesting is that the way he does this, the way he accomplishes it in the book, isn't, completely the most stylistically interesting to me. The only thing I would say really that I was not a fan of is that the memoir itself skips around narratively. So chronologically, it's kind of all over the place at times. He'll talk about a moment that happened in 2010, and he'll go right back to 1994, and it's just kind of like, whoa, wait, what, did we skip 10 years? Are we back? But I think he overcompensates in a sense because his genuine appreciation and heartfelt and thanks for everything that's happened and the opportunities that he's had, it sort of balances it out. And at the end of the day, there's only one Lieutenant Dan. And I definitely recommend picking up this book and reading it. And what I think is really interesting, and I'm going to segue into these Criterion examples now, is that it was a diamond in the rough. There was no way that I was going to find this and be like, this is a great book. I just happened to sort of pick it up, find it, read it, and I'm very interested in books like these that you have no expectations about and you're pleasantly surprised about. And this is one that I think is interesting because it's not super talked about. I don't hear it a lot, and I've never actually heard of this book until I got through like halfway through it and I looked it up, and it's just not super talked about. But so in terms of clarity, I think it's a 3 because it really accomplishes a lot in few words. It's not a super short book, but I think it has a lot of missions, a lot of statements, and a lot of background to his. I think the beginning part I don't relate with as much, but as it gets more into his later life and his sort of career, his acting stuff, it really gets really interesting, and he accomplishes a lot with few words, which is really good in terms of conciseness and clarity. And then in terms of insights, like I said, he has a lot of interesting quotes, he has a lot of interesting perspectives, but he accomplishes these and he showcases them well, and especially with few words, which again is conciseness, which isn't one of my criterion, but it kind of underlies the clarity. And in terms of style, the only thing is like what I mentioned is like the narrative sort of skips around, which is it reads sort of like if you were sitting around a fire campfire and your uncle was telling you about the good old days, and he skips around in terms of chronology, and you get sort of lost at times, which is fine. It's just if that were edited a little bit more, it would definitely be a little bit better. That being said, in terms of genre rank, I think it's excellent. I've not read a lot of autobiographies, but in terms of like maybe the 10 that I've read, this is definitely the best. So excellent. It definitely ranks in the top 1% for me. That being said, the X Factor is a yes. I definitely related to it. Something I can't really explain is the X Factor, and it's just something that, I don't know, around 50% of the book, I just started to really agree with a lot of stuff that he says, and a lot of the stuff is not like super nuanced arguments or positions, but it's just stuff that it's good, it's worth a read. And I think lastly, in terms of reread value, it's low, but I'm not including this in my sort of review of the book. I just don't think it's the type of book like Wuthering Heights, or if you're talking about James Joyce, you're going to really learn and pick up a lot of new interesting vocabulary reading it. It's just not that sort of book. I don't think that's bad. I don't think Gary Sinise was going for that. I do think it accomplishes probably around the scope that he was trying to encompass, and I do think it's a really good book, and I would recommend reading it. And I did rate it on Goodreads. I have a bunch of stuff on Goodreads, but I think I expressed everything that I was looking for, and overall I think this book definitely qualifies as excellent. So I would just, if you get a chance, you see the book and you can get it for cheap, definitely give it a read. I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank Gary Sinise in particular. I think this "what are you doing for others" sentiment is really interesting because, among other things, if you evaluate and you say, hey, I'm doing stuff for other people and I'm helping people, I think something that Gary Sinise manages to do is that he manages to say, you know, like a call to action, like he says, so you're helping people, right? And you're helping people out. Why can't you keep helping? Why can't you do a little more? Why can't you get other people to do a little more? And I think that's the thing that's really interesting is more people live, more people experience pain, more people are going to need more help. And I think that's just an interesting message. It's not something that I thought about before, and it's almost like, you know, these messages are sort of timeless, that you could read it something in like Gandhi. I want to just ask you, what are you doing for others? And in the spirit of this book, I would ask if you like this video to go out and do something charitable for someone else, not because they can help you back, but because it's probably the right thing to do. And chances are it'll make you feel better, and hopefully you'll continue to do things for other people because it's the right thing to do in the future. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope you like this review.